In the thick of World War I, a story of unimaginable bravery emerged from the battlefields of France. This is the tale of the Lost Battalion of the U.S. Army's 77th Division, led by Major Charles Whittlesey during the Meuse-Argonne Offensive in October 1918. Their mission was to break through German lines in the Argonne Forest, a crucial task intended to link up with Allied forces and turn the tide of the war. However, as they advanced, their support was cut off, leaving them surrounded by enemy forces. For 5 grueling days, the Lost Battalion, which began as a group of about 550 soldiers, was enveloped by German troops. With communication lines severed and supplies dwindling, the soldiers found themselves isolated in a hostile foreign landscape. The Germans, recognizing their vulnerability, launched relentless attacks, bombarding them with artillery and infantry assaults. Despite the overwhelming odds, Major Whittlesey refused to surrender, a decision that would define their harrowing ordeal. The German forces, aware of the battalion's precarious situation, sent terms of surrender via a captured American soldier. As ammunition ran low, they engaged in hand-to-hand combat to repel the enemy. There was no way to communicate their dire situation to the outside world, and the men's hope dwindled with each passing hour. A ray of hope came in the form of Cher Ami, a homing pigeon. As the battalion's last resort, Cher Ami was sent with a desperate message through the barrage of enemy fire, flying over 25 miles to headquarters. Miraculously, she succeeded, delivering the note that pinpointed their location and called for reinforcements. This act of bravery by a small bird turned the tide for the exhausted soldiers, providing a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. In response to Cher Ami's message, American and French forces mounted a counterattack to relieve the beleaguered battalion. After 5 days of brutal combat, the battalion was finally rescued. Of the original 550 soldiers, only 194 walked out of the Argonne Forest. The staggering losses underscored the ferocity of the battle, but their stand had significantly weakened German defenses. Major Whittlesey and his men's resilience and sacrifice played a pivotal role in the eventual Allied victory. Their extraordinary courage under relentless fire earned Whittlesey and several of his soldiers the Medal of Honor. The story of the Lost Battalion remains a testament to unyielding bravery and resilience, a heroic episode that continues to inspire long after the echoes of war have faded. As the exhausted and battered survivors of the Lost Battalion emerged from the Argonne Forest, they were greeted with a mixture of awe and sorrow. The men had endured unimaginable hardship, surviving without adequate food, water, or medical supplies, all while facing constant attacks from the German forces. Their bodies bore the scars of battle, but their spirits were unbroken. Major Charles Whittlesey, the commander who had refused to surrender despite the overwhelming odds, was deeply affected by the loss of so many of his men. He was hailed as a hero, receiving the Medal of Honor for his leadership and determination. But for Whittlesey, the cost of the battle weighed heavily on his heart. Many of the soldiers who had fought so bravely under his command would never return home, and the memory of those dark days in the Argonne Forest haunted him for the rest of his life. Among the survivors were also other heroes, like Captain George McMurtry, who despite being wounded continued to lead his men and keep morale high. There was Private Krotoshinsky, who had been captured by the Germans but escaped, returning to his unit under fire. And of course, Cher Ami, the homing pigeon who had flown through enemy fire to deliver the crucial message that saved the battalion, was hailed as a symbol of hope and endurance. Cher Ami was later awarded the French Croix de Guerre for her bravery, and she lived the rest of her life as a celebrated war hero. The legacy of the Lost Battalion became a symbol of American tenacity and resilience during World War I. The soldiers' stand in the Argonne Forest demonstrated the willpower of ordinary men, faced with extraordinary circumstances. It wasn't just their courage in battle that was admired, but their refusal to give up, even when the situation seemed hopeless. In the years following the war, the story of the Lost Battalion became part of American military legend. Their sacrifice was memorialized in books, films, and military history. But for the men who had lived through those harrowing days, the memory was often bittersweet. They had fought not for glory, but for their comrades, for survival, and for the hope that their stand would bring the war closer to its end.